Man, do you think we have to pay for our sins?
No! This is not an option! Okay? Listen to yourselves! This is insane! None of this is real!
We had a chance!
We are talking about the movie Gehenna, Where Death Lives. This one I had to practice that title loads of times before saying it because I kept getting it wrong. Gehenna, Where Death Lives. Actually made in 2016, coming out now in 2018. And this movie is set in Saipan. And what it involves is a kind of a small group of property developers as they are trying to find a location for a new hotel. And they are sort of scouting this kind of like this beach area. Now there's kind of protests by the locals that this is a kind of a sacred ground and, you know, has some kind of bad juju there. And whilst they're in this kind of location, they kind of find this, what looks like the entrance to a bunker. Now they need to kind of go in there to see how, you know, how it kind of goes underground, because it obviously may affect the structural integrity of a future building, etc. So they get into these sort of tunnels and end up being trapped there, and they kind of find that there's some type of supernatural presence down there. There seems to be this strange old man down there who's emaciated. He kind of looks like the one from the movie Seven, if you know what I mean. Played by Doug Jones, I believe, who you may know from The Shape of Water, among others. And yeah, ultimately it's about this kind of small group of people who are having weird hallucinations. There may be supernatural forces at large here, and they kind of get, you know, getting cabin fever, and really kind of how they kind of end up turning on each other, etc. So let's discuss this movie, what works and what doesn't work. First of all, I thought the acting, we'll go with the positives first of all, the acting here was very good. Now this movie says it stars Lance Henriksen. Do not be fooled, he is literally in this movie for 20 seconds, and it looks like a film, the film crew literally went to his house and just took a few, you know, shots of him on the phone talking to someone, and that's literally it. So don't be expecting to see lots of Lance Henriksen, but he is in there. But I thought the cast were pretty good, and they didn't necessarily need a big name, because I thought they did a pretty decent job here of portraying these characters, especially the female lead, who, what I really liked about her, she seemed very professional in her job. And you know, it's one of my bugbears when we have like people who are meant to be a certain, you know, have a job role in the film, but they simply don't act like the professional of that type. But she does. She acts like a professional. She acts like a kind of a saleswoman, a sort of a negotiator. Very professional, and I really like that. So I thought that the acting here was actually quite good. But amongst the kind of the whole stuff I said, but to me she was definitely the standout. So the acting was good. This movie has some individual scenes that you take on their own, and woof, they are some scary stuff. The visuals here and the makeup that they use are really good. I mean, we'll come on to the negatives. I don't feel maybe it works as a whole, but there are some individual scenes, if you were to watch these scenes, that really do look really freaky. And there's the way they've kind of made these kind of like, these weird sort of like mummified beings that are maybe down here or kind of maybe getting envisioned, really look great. And there's a really fantastic sequence where our kind of young cameraman is kind of having this kind of like experience involving another female character that really is freaky as hell. I think the location shooting here looks great. Obviously we see, I mean, a lot of it is in these tunnels, but it looks really good. Obviously we see a lot of the kind of the jungle outside, and you know, it's a lush looking film, and you know, it definitely has an original feel to it. I feel the story is trying to do something original. It doesn't entirely succeed, if you ask me, but it isn't just a typical creature feature. It does actually have some bigger themes about what's going on and tries to be a bit of a mystery, which I feel it somewhat succeeds at, but not completely. So let's move on to some of the kind of the negatives here. This movie ends up becoming a little dark in regards to simply it's the fact that it's all sort of set underground, and although the kind of the first kind of like 20 minutes or so of the film is set outside, just having this film set in these kind of like catacombs makes it a fairly drab affair to look at for the rest of the movie. Obviously it's all set in this kind of underground bunker, so it's kind of hard to avoid that, but you can't help but feel it doesn't look particularly visually stimulating when you're watching it for a kind of a long period of time. That's maybe a personal thing for me, but that was that. Now the actual story itself, the plot, like I've mentioned, I feel it is original, it kind of tries to be original, and it has this kind of twist in it, but the twist is telegraphed really obviously very early in the film, and it has this big reveal at the end. I think I knew that 20 minutes going into this film. It's such an obvious twist, and I think that the film thinks it's being clever, but it really isn't. I mean, even the most just nonchalant viewer, I feel, would be able to pick up on that, because it just makes such a big obvious thing of picking up this kind of clue that you think, I know exactly what's going to happen in this movie and where it's kind of going, which is a bit of a shame because it kind of undoes a lot of the what the film tries to do, which doesn't make a lot of sense, I have to say. So there are, without kind of giving it away, there are weird things that happen, not just kind of like creatures, but things that happen maybe with time frame, should we say, but it doesn't really give you an explanation of why that is happening or how. It just kind of happens. So I didn't feel it worked particularly well in that regard. It just seems to you just have to accept it. And again, it just kind of ends up becoming a little bit convoluted. And although the acting I feel is strong across the board here, you feel like sometimes we're treading over the same ground a little bit. So we have very, very kind of similar conversations between characters through a lot of different scenes, and you just feel you kind of, at times, there maybe should have been a little bit more to this, maybe having a little bit of more variety in this film. On the technical side, I feel this film works well in regards to its effects, its kind of acting, its location shooting, but I feel the story here could have used a little bit of work and maybe have a little bit more variety in regards to some of the visuals, because it is just a little bit samey after a while when we're having these kind of these flashbacks and stuff. I mean, we do see a couple of external shots just in flashback, but I think it needed to be a little bit more than that, and maybe kind of like the story was definitely the issue for me. But it's an interesting film, and there's definitely some good parts for horror fans in here. Doug Jones is in this. I feel it would have been better to actually have him as a character, because he's a fairly big name now, I would say, in genre cinema, and you could have got any old person to be under makeup, and maybe it would have been better to have Doug Jones as an actual character and just have some unknown stunt person do it in the makeup. Anyway, just a personal thing. But it's worth a watch, and has some really creepy scenes in it. 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to you next time. Bye for now.